Hello and welcome to another edition of Wise Counsel Weekly, powered by Athenian Group. I'm your host, Tanyan Farley, and I have my co-host with me, Alex Francis. Alex, how you doing this morning, my friend?
Doing good, man. It's good Wednesday. Sun's out. How are you?
Doing good, man. We are back from our 1 week podcast hiatus.
Yep.
And no, we didn't take a vacation. We actually
Of course
just had a
not.
lot going on work-wise, so it was the opposite of a vacation. The podcast is always a nice outlet for us during the week. It
Hmm.
allows us to talk through some things that are going on. It allows us to provide you, the listener, some great content. And honestly, for Alex and I, it's a great, point in time to just kind of talk through some of the things that are going on. And so,
Yep.
not having that last week, I'm like looking forward to this week. I'm fired up, man. I'm fired up. In the words of Bart
Absolutely.
Scott, jacked up, feeling pretty good about this week. We have another great guest this week.
Oh
Some
yeah.
of you are going to know him. Some of you aren't. Some of you are going to follow him immensely after this. So that's great. And our theme for this week is taking on new challenges in your personal life. So
Hmm.
we feel like we've done, quite a bit on the enterprise and business side the last several months, which is fantastic. And I think it's provided a lot of business or a lot of value to our business owners and those that are aspiring, entrepreneurs. But I also think that, if you're an employee right now, if you're, an aspiring entrepreneur, focusing on yourself and your personal development is really key too. So I think today's episode will be really good for that. Then we're going to move into, quick hits with managing partner Bobby Dixon. He always has good insight. And then, finally, our big three this week is bucket list items. This
Oh
one's going to
yeah.
be, Alex suggested this one. Alex came up with a great big three this week. It's pretty deep, man. I have two ways we're going to go about that. So we'll talk
Oh
about
my
them when we get there, but it's
God.
exciting stuff. So, without any further ado, you want to dive into game time?
Yeah, man. Let's do it, man.
All right. Sounds good. Sounds good. So we've talked a lot, like I said, over the last couple of months about how, your business can take on new challenges
Hmm.
or overcome adversity, whether you seek them out or whether they get brought to you. I would say 99% of the challenges people have faced the last 6 months have been brought to them. But we want
Right.
to spend a little time, like we said, focusing on practical strategies for you as an individual. So with that being said, Alex, like what are a few key things you think of when we discuss someone who's ready to take on new challenges?
I mean, first thing I think of is, a new challenge. Just look at it as an opportunity. And yes, I know everyone kind of wants to think of it that way, but sometimes you got to actually take that word challenge out of it. Sometimes challenge is given a negative connotation, and it kind of gives some people like an anxiety type of feeling, um, and they have to like overcome that challenge in a sense. But opportunity is something that people kind of see on the positive side a little bit more because most people view an opportunity as a way to get better or a way to improve their situation. And then the second thing I think of is how prepared that person is for that new opportunity. For that challenge, for that opportunity. If you aren't prepared, what steps can we take to get you there and make sure that you are prepared? Because the opportunity will only manifest all that it can be if you put your all into it. And like Malcolm X said, the
Like that.
future belongs to those who prepare for it. And I kind of live by that every single day to make sure everything is in order for the next steps to move forward.
Yeah, I think that's great. I think the thing that you hit on that I'm going to think the most about from that answer was, really it's about setting and managing expectations with yourself. To your point,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's all about the perspective. If you see it as a challenge versus it as an opportunity, I love that. Like
Right.
flip it on yourself. We talk about like disrupting your thought pattern all the time. I think for me, that's the main point that I would think about is, taking on a challenge is all about how you perceive it.
Right.
We've talked several times about, the fear itself or the ideas you conjure in your head are oftentimes way worse than what actually happens, right? If you think
Mm-hmm.
about when you're a little kid and you're like learning to swim for the first time, like what do you think about? You think about going to the deep end and drowning. You
Yeah.
think about
Drowning.
what actually happens, right? You're like, man, I could just
Right.
float and tread water for a long period of time. So, I think about from a personal sense right now, like preparing myself to take on new challenges, exactly what you talked about, right? So I think it's refining skills you already have. I think
Mm-hmm.
it's learning new skills, right? I think we'd be remiss if we don't continue learning. So I think continue to learn. But I think most importantly, right, is continually like seek out things to make yourself better, right? So whether
Right.
that's, you know, if you're in your, we're just actually talking about, our workout programs for the podcast. So whether that's,
Mm-hmm.
doing a few extra reps or going a little heavier here, like pushing yourself so you're continuing to like prepare for life. When we had Coach K on, early in this podcast, we talked, he talks about training for life, right? So I think when you talk about training for life, that's physically, that's mentally, that's emotionally. So I think, grounding yourself so you can be prepared, thinking about whatever you need to kind of channel your thoughts, I think is good. And then, finally, I think for me, like seeking wise counsel, right? Finding people around you that you can talk about things with, that you can get experience from, I think is a great way to take on new challenges.
Absolutely, man.
So I would say
Uh,
oftentimes I feel like in this area, people have told me that they aren't like born to do this. So I talked about,
mhm,
like preparing for this, or they're not born to do this or that. It's just not who I am. But like, do you
right.
think that people are fundamentally like set to either take on new challenges or not take on new challenges? Or do you think it's something they can learn as a skill?
Honestly, man, I'm thinking it's a mindset. I'm thinking, some people that I've seen out there in the world do amazing things. I've seen the people like come home from jail and create thriving businesses in the food chain industry, just from learning culinary skills while they're incarcerated. Learning about people that have turned nothing into something throughout my whole life. So I think of someone that says that, that they don't have those skills, or it's not just who I am, it's kind of an excuse. You're kind of being lazy, or you're kind of being scared of that opportunity. You're not ready maybe to jump into it, or maybe to start that endeavor, or whatever it may be at the moment. And you're still debating about it and trying to find an easy way out of it to not push yourself a little bit more. So, but I mean, it's so many ways, for someone to learn a new skill, man. I mean, hiring a coach or a consultant, you can intern or be an apprentice for someone to develop new skills and techniques. Of course, there's YouTube University out there. I mean, lots of how-tos and tutorial videos. So you don't have to be born with it to do it. You just have to, got to have the will to do it.
Yeah, the will and the effort, right? I think that's spot on. I mean, I think about some of the best leaders that we have in our country today. A lot of them weren't born leaders, right? They were
Yeah.
born very good at one particular set of skills, and they've kind of grown in that to become leaders. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that is really, to me, speaks volumes, because you think about, oh, this person is a natural born leader, and there's definitely some of that, right? There's people that are naturally
Absolutely.
born, musicians, athletes, whatever it may be, but there's a whole nother piece of that that takes you from good to great. Right. And I think that's the effort and your ability to kind of grow in that. So I definitely think that people can learn skills. I think,
Mm-hmm.
we've talked about public speaking on this podcast a lot, but it's a very important skill to be successful in business. And I think a lot of people don't have that naturally. And so I think working on those skills, working on what it takes to, take on a new challenge, whether that's mentally preparing yourself to be vulnerable, mentally preparing
Right.
yourself to be in a state of learning, right? You're not always going to be the smartest guy in the
Yeah.
room. In fact, you shouldn't
Sometimes you're
be, right?
uncomfortable.
Yeah, exactly. And so definitely think you can learn those type of skills, and you should intentionally seek out those kinds of skills. But I really think, to me, the key to
Mhm.
taking on new challenges is actually like gratitude in your life. So how important do you see gratitude, taking on new challenges? Like, how do you think that
Mhm.
plays into it? And maybe explain to the people out there a little bit, like what I mean by gratitude in this sense.
Yeah, like having gratitude, or basically being thankful for the certain situation, or thankful for the opportunity that you currently have, or thank you for the opportunity that's being presented and that new challenge. And I feel like you should all be thankful in most of those situations, especially when taking on a new challenge. I like to look at the challenges the same way I looked at competing in sports while growing up. Just based off of my faith, I always felt, blessed and extremely thankful for those athletic abilities that I received. Everyone doesn't have those natural skills or that natural speeds that I was born with, but I always wanted to give my all and not waste the gifts I was given. So I take that opportunity into the new challenges in life, as well as the business world. Extremely grateful for the opportunities and the new challenges coming my way, but I want to give my all to show appreciation for those opportunities and show that I'm thankful for that being presented to me.
No, I completely agree. And for those of you who don't know, some of those God-given abilities, Alex Scott was being one of the fastest humans I've ever seen. But I agree that the gratitude piece is key. For me, I look at it as your starting point. So I think about what is going to get you to jump out of the airplane, right? To
Mm,
take that example, right? And for me, it's the understanding of being so like thankful and understanding of what I have now and what I have to lose, right? I think
right.
about a lot of people didn't know what a rock bottom scenario looked like. And then in the last
Hmm.
6 months, I think we've seen
Yeah.
rock
Yeah.
bottom emotionally, rock bottom financially, rock bottom politically. And so I
Hmm.
think understanding what that looks like, I think people hopefully have less fear of what that actually looks like. And I think that like being thankful for what you have, number one, will prevent you from getting that just achiever mindset, which will get to a point where it's like nothing is ever good enough, and you never enjoy it. I'm not like,
Right.
complacency is the enemy of progress, right? But I think understanding that, I'm thankful to have achieved this, I'm thankful to have this in my life, gives you a foundation to kind of jump from, to go after
Right.
something, because you understand, you're like, I have it pretty good right now. I think that, what I have is a foundation to go forward, and you can kind of grow from that and achieve from that. So I think I would encourage people to incorporate, daily gratitude in their life. That's one of, Tony Robbins' like key principles, is like setting gratitude every day, because that's what helps you defeat fear, because fear is the enemy of you taking risk. And so I think that's really where people get stuck. And I think to me, that is the key to taking on new challenges, really.
Gotcha. I completely agree with you. And just to let you know, I will never jump out of a plane. I'm extremely careful at heights, but our guest, he might. You know what I mean? He did a lot of crazy stuff.
I was going to say, man, that's a perfect segue into our guest, who I think would definitely jump out of a plane. We'll make sure we ask him that on this podcast. But we're going to bring on our guest now, who is Gabe Baker, who is from the Bachelor, Listen to Your Heart on ABC. He was on American Ninja Warrior. He was on Netflix Ultimate Beastmaster. He's a recording artist now. Dude is a wonderful magician. He speaks several languages. He played college football. He's an incredible friend of the podcast, and we're super excited to have him on. All right, we now welcome on the podcast our guest for the day, Mr. Gabe Baker from ABC's The Bachelor's Listen to Your Heart, American Ninja Warrior. I actually watched Gabe do American Ninja Warrior live. It was pretty cool.
Yep.
That's true.
Netflix's Ultimate Beastmaster, current recording artist, former college football player, the Reverend himself. Man, how you doing this morning?
I'm doing good, guys. This is so much fun. I always love catching up with good old friends like you guys. So, and
Absolutely,
it's a pleasure, man.
Yeah, man.
When you just brought up that Ultimate Ninja Warrior, and I remember I was living right by the place where you did it in Cyprus, and I didn't get a chance to come out there and watch you actually compete.
Oh, so I actually competed in Oklahoma City, but I know exactly what you're talking about. That was like the year before I did it, because I went out to that time. But yeah, so Tanny
was right around the corner from my house. Man.
This is actually a great story.
It's a great story. I could go for it.
We drive out. So it's in Oklahoma City. So I'm with a buddy that we played with, Matt Simonet. Shout out Matt. We're like, you know what? We're gonna drive out. We're gonna see Gabe do American Ninja Warrior. So it's like an 8-hour drive probably. So we're like, no worries, we'll take it. So Gabe's like, all right, they're going to film in the middle of the night so that it's dark out. It's like part of the thing. He's like, I'll probably go on at X time, right? Obviously you have no idea in these situations, right? And Gabe has no control of what's going on.
No idea.
We're driving, we get past the Oklahoma border, and all of a sudden I'm like, man, like the sky's like purple. Like something's going on. Tornado sirens start going off everywhere, right? So Matt and I are like, all right, we're going to truck through, we're going to get there. So we kind of cruise through, we get there, the rain stops. I'm like, I think they delayed everything because of the rain for a little bit.
Yeah, they did.
So everything kind of ran long. So I think Gabe ended up going on at like 4 a.m.
Yeah, it was like almost 5.
I don't even know how you were like functioning at that point in time.
Oh no, I was hanging on by a string.
Literally, quite literally.
Yes, quite literally.
I was asleep in the truck, and I was getting like text updates when it was like the next. Yeah. I'd like talk to the sign up person. I'm like, hey, let me know when Gabe's like on the deck circle. Also, I didn't know this, but Oklahoma is pretty cold at 4 a.m. So I was out there with a t-shirt and shorts, man, getting crushed in the wind. But it was awesome to see you do that, man. And I'm sure it was a great experience.
Yeah, it was.
So Gabe, man, I know we kind of talked through that experience, but why don't you, tell the audience a little bit about yourself, your background, like where you're at now, what you're up to, and then we can kind of circle back.
Yeah, man, I'd love to. All right. So yeah, my name is Gabe Baker, as was mentioned. I'm 28 years young, born and bred in Texas, born in Dallas, grew up in San Antonio. Incredible family that was just always there for me, doing a bunch of things. I lead in with this because this is, very foundational to kind of the direction I've taken. But my parents were in the full-time Christian ministry for about half my life. Moved to San Antonio in a couple of years, and they got out of the full-time ministry, but still were doing a lot of stuff, sacrificing, serving a lot of people. And then me and my siblings, I'm the youngest of three, older brother, eldest sister. And so we all always did things together. And me and my brother mainly did all sports together. So
Right.
like, just like the normal kid, playing a bunch of sports growing up, and picked up the cello in the elementary school and was able to play that along. So doing a lot of things. My parents were great in letting us kind of explore curiosities. And so coming to college, got an opportunity, got a number of football scholarship opportunities, and took the one to Rice there in Houston. And definitely one of the best decisions I've made in my life for sure. And so moved to Houston in 2010, and was there for about 10 years. Played on, I know it's crazy to say that, man. Crazy.
Wow, thinking about that.
Isn't that weird? I know.
Too.
I know. It's a little stab in the side. It's like, man, we're getting older. We're getting there, guys.
Sure.
But this is where I met these awesome guys here. We played on the team together. Some good and some challenging years for sure, but some, I'd say definitely growth years, bar none. Was a environmental engineer major there, and I really enjoyed my experience. Honestly, I grew a lot, made a lot of great relationships, and went through a lot of cool stuff. And then post that, went into the corporate world, worked as an engineer for a while, civil engineer, and then made my way to working for the mayor, the Harris County judge, which is like the mayor of the county. And then jumping into COVID, I've kind of jumped around a couple other small details, but I actually currently live in Nashville as of a month ago. And the turnaround came at the kind of right as COVID hit, which is crazy. But I could share more about the Bachelor show, but that was kind of part of the shift of like, oh man, I really want to give music a full shot. Like my whole energy, resources, almost like I'm focusing on football, the same kind of mentality. I'd never done that. And like, okay, I got to shift it up, whatever that looks like. And I feel like God really opened up some doors, relationships out here in Nashville. Be like, hey, let me give it a shot. Let me move out and be in a new space. And so, yeah, I'm here in Nashville focusing on music, but I also have a number of other goals I'm going to be pursuing here alongside that. So, yeah, man, just living life like you guys, man. Just living life.
I hear it, man. I hear it. I see it. I can see the glow on your face. I can see that
thanks.
Nashville sun been hitting you, man.
I got some good lighting right here too. I got a nice lamp. I got a nice lamp right here.
I love that.
Yeah, man. You mentioned, I mean, all of these goals that you still have, even, not even 28 years old, did so many things so far. Speak Mandarin, just playing the cello. You've taken on a whole host of just new challenges and career paths. I mean, what drives you to do that? Like, how do you open yourself up to these new experiences?
It's interesting. I think it kind of started with how I grew up, and I grew up in a pretty, I like looking back and talking to other people how they grown up. I grateful to have grown up in such like a diverse ethnic environment. Honestly, I think that had a lot to do with like my perspective on like, oh wow, there's so much more out there than what I'm used to, like my culture or my neighborhood, right? And so my parents were so much about being with others and serving others. And so I think being able to have an understanding like, wow, there's so many things I can learn from other people. And as my parents allowed us to kind of explore our curiosities as kids, that kind of just grew that appetite in my life, in my heart, if you will, my mind of like, yeah, if I have something I'm interested in, why not try it? And if I'm not good at it, it's okay. I can just move on to the next thing, but I'm going to learn something from it. And I think that's the curiosity to grow. I think is that has been that motivator for me to be like, and it's really helped. So I'll say that I'll put it twofold actually. So the curiosity to grow, and then the interest to want to just connect with more and more people a lot and get to know more people.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think for me as well, moving to Houston was a little bit of that cultural awakening you talked about. It's one of the reasons that I love living here. There's so much going on from, different cultures and backgrounds, and you get you get to see like a different perspective. I think the other thing too, and we talked about this earlier in the podcast, was what I see as a big piece of like taking on new challenges is like really focusing on the gratitude for what you have in your life now, because the fear of like losing that is paralyzing, right? If you're not rooted in the right things. So for you, when you're like obviously going to move to Nashville or going to take on a new challenge, like what besides like, your ability to go do the thing. What drives you to go do that? Like, what gives you that faith to move forward?
I think over time I'm a pretty, if you guys do the Enneagram stuff, I'm a three wing two. Do you guys know
I'm
your Enneagram? It's
I'm
okay if
two
not.
wing three. Two
Two
No
wing
wing
three.
idea what you guys
Yeah.
are talking about.
Okay,
I'm
I
the
know
host, man.
we're talking in code to you, Alex.
Got it.
We'll hook you up after this, Alex. We'll make
Yeah, I
sure we
got it.
link it
I
up
got
too
it.
for people that haven't done it. I think it's really interesting.
It's good. It's one of those personality kind of tests, if you will. But I think it's pretty cool. I like the way that it captures like who you are in a sense. But
Mhm.
so I'm a 3-wing-2, which means I'm like I'm achiever and / helper, if you will. And then I think I have a lot of like perfectionist mindset in me. And so I think over time I've broken through this this fear of messing up.
Okay.
But then also this attention to really going after criticism in the sense. So like criticism through people giving me criticism or life giving me criticism, like experiences like teaching you things. And so I think your question was like, no, what's the kind of that driver point to jumping into something new? I think of as I've grown to embrace the idea that, hey, it's, if it does, like as cliche as it is, like if it really doesn't kill you, it really will make you stronger if you're able to have the mindset that it's going to lead to growth. Like even if it's something really small, redeemable lesson from a stupid decision you made, it's going to lead to growth. Right.
Right.
And that's really opened up my eyes of like, okay, if I can make a calculated risk in some kind of way, it's going to help me grow to whatever level that I want to grow, or that I might not know I want to grow to.
Sure.
And I think that's a lot of things that ends up has ended up holding me back from making decisions. It's just fear. And the fear of honestly putting in the effort a lot of times.
Mhm.
And then mostly the fear of like, oh, not being good enough, or not meeting the expectations of other people, or the
Right.
expectations of myself. So it's kind of breaking through these constructs that I've noticed that, have controlled me, and I think are a really common thing that control people when they make decisions. But like, okay, what is this on my heart, and how can I pursue it? And
Right.
what are these things that are these fears that are holding me back?
Absolutely. And it's funny that you being an engineer and our other guest that was an engineer coming out of school, and Reggie Van Lee, you both mentioned seeking the new opportunities, seeking new challenges, finding new ways to, find an answer to a question that's hard and not answered. And you using a new challenge to find outcomes, whether it's good or bad. Is there something that you would wish you can go back in time and tell your college self as someone that's now learning these experiences in your later part in life? Because me, I have a lot of stuff I'll go back and tell my college self to get me to the next level, or to get me to level up at that time that I could have been, that from the experiences that I know now.
Yeah, that's so good. I loved the college version of myself. I was really happy with my college. I think it was the best I could have done.
I
And
like you too. I can't lie.
I appreciate
You're
that,
great.
guys. And I say that because like, oh man, I can be such a stickler just like for myself. And the one thing that I would tell myself is to stop trying so hard. Like in my mind of like, and not to say like lose my values or lose my convictions with certain things or my standards, or like what I like to do, and the structure that I try to create in my life. But I think I got so like hard on myself that I feel like I wasn't like I was kind of so emotionally wound up to where I really wasn't able to like just have, I don't know, to give of myself more to experiences, because I was like
Mhm.
calculating and thinking about things so much,
For
like, oh,
sure.
did I do that right? Did I do that right?
Right.
I think about this a lot when like reflecting on my times playing football, because I don't know if you know, like I've gotten to playing more like intramural stuff now. And
Yep.
like, it's
Okay.
actually cool to see like, wow, I'm actually a really good athlete compared to like a normal person.
Yeah. Yeah. You don't have Sam McGuffey running
Yes.
around, right?
Oh,
So it's a different
yo,
Yeah.
story. Yeah.
100%. And it's funny, like when I'm doing that, you're playing loose, and you're like, honestly, you're having fun, and you're really doing really well. And
Mhm.
that was like little examples of that, like really shined a light on the idea of like, man, I wish I would have played as loose in my mind as I did now, as I
Yep.
did,
Yeah.
during that.
Right.
Cause it just makes you, I don't know, you're able to like, just, I don't know, have a little,
You play more
give over
freely.
yourself more, play more
Yeah.
freely. You can have more fun.
Yeah.
And I think you could play better when you're not thinking so much. So
Absolutely.
that's the one thing I'd say. It's like, stop trying so hard, stop thinking so much.
No, I think that's a great point. I think for every college kid ever,
I
I
think
think
so
that's
too.
definitely the key, right? You're trying to find yourself, you're pressing everywhere, right? You're pressing your school, you're pressing your social life. If you're playing athletics, you're definitely pressing, right? You have others pressing on you. So I think that's a great one to take away. I mean, I think about professionally now, what we do or what anyone's doing, it's kind of the same thing, right? When you first start out, you're definitely trying to impress someone. You're trying to figure out what's going on. And as you kind of settle in, you're talking about you play loose, and that's when you play best, right? That's when you work best. You think about your client, whatever it is, right? I think that's kind of how it rolls forward. So you mentioned a little bit about, what you would have told your college self. I'm always curious, right? So for me, when I go into a big meeting, I have a very similar mindset to what I had before I went to go play a game, right? As far as focus, determined, energy, like, what is your mindset like before you go record a song or before you go do, a show or do whatever it is you're about to do, right? Is it different? Is it the same? Do you tweak it? Like, what are your thoughts?
I'm actually still trying to figure that out at the same time. But so far, where I'm at, I actually have my first, performance show tomorrow here in Nashville,
Ooh,
which I'm really stoked for. So
love
beginning
that.
ready for that.
Plug.
I know. Plug. I know. If you're out in Nashville, you can come see me play. But I'm gonna probably stream it live on IG.
Okay,
So,
okay.
Sweet.
but yeah, where I'm at with recording and doing stuff like that, is again, music is a completely different animal than it is sports, or even obviously being in any kind of technical career, because it's so creatively subjective. And so it's even more what you make of it, and your perspective and the approach you have. So the thing I've learned that works best is to know yourself, like know who you are and what you want to create, and then just create and then edit later. Like, I think if you go in with the idea that I'm trying to create this perfect thing on the first go, or on the first writing session I'm having, like trying to write something on my own, or if I do like a co-write session with someone else, or if I'm in the studio, like just put it out there and then you can edit it. Because perfection, I think, is the enemy of progress a lot of times, because you just like, oh, it's not right, so I'm just either not going to try again because I get discouraged, or it's just you kind of overwhelm yourself sometimes. So that's one thing I've come with the approach here. So even knowing that tomorrow I'm most likely going to mess up, and I'm very okay with that. So I just know that if I go in with like, okay, this is, I prepared as much as I can, and I go in and just be myself, know who I am as an artist, and then kind of put it out there, then I can grow and edit, post and along the way.
I think that's
Like that.
great.
Perfection is the enemy of progress. I have to type that down real quick.
For
So
sure.
I have two-part question here. One, I just want to know what's next on the Gabe Baker frontier. A couple of those goals that you mentioned earlier. And then the second one, today, or usually on the podcast, we have a big three at the end of each episode. And today's big three is our bucket list items. So I want to know what's next on the frontier for Gabe Baker. And then can you give me one or two of your bucket list items?
Oh, I love it. Okay.
No pressure. I told you we were only giving layups, and then we came with that one. So
this is a good one though. I've had a lot of conversations with people about life and stuff, so I kind of feel like I've working on having these prepared answers.
Nice.
So a big thing that I'm working on, and I'm going to probably jump in next year, is start my doctorate of ministry degree at a local seminary here in Nashville. Something I've been wanting to do eventually. I got my master's when I was in Houston, and I was like, well, what else can I do to kind of grow and invest in myself, and also invest in the community out here from a giving standpoint. So really growing in my connections out here. So kind of strategizing other ways in which I can like supplant myself in the community. I might, something in the government work end might come together eventually too. So like that is some two on working goals outside of my music stuff here, which is cool. And so then the bucket list thing, I've had the growing ambition to run for governor of Texas for a while.
Love it.
I don't know if I told you guys
I was hoping that was coming. We the people support Gabe Baker.
Yes.
Right?
I'll take it. I have 2 votes. It really has been an ambition in mine. I think it's, and part of me, like even speaking it is, or putting it out there is part of the process for me, because I can doubt myself, like, oh, is that really something I want to do, or something? And I'm going to figure it out along the way if that's something I want to do. But right now, it's something that's been on my heart. Like, yeah, I love Texas so stinking much. I really do.
Yeah.
I love. Sorry to hear the background. It's been great learning about the levers that you can pull in government to be able to help and meet the needs of others. And so, being able to do that with purposeful objective and creating conversations in the community, and being in that kind of role really, really excites me. I love leading and doing that thing. So that's what I like to do. So that's a huge bucket list thing. I have a lot of other ones, but I'll stop with that one.
Okay. I love that. And honestly, one of the things I didn't say at the beginning of this podcast, but we've joked about this it's probably been Gabe's entire life, but for at least I've known Gabe is, Gabe for president as soon as he turns 35. So this is we're going in the right direction, man. I like it. I like the steps we're taking.
Yep.
I got 6 years to get there, 35.
But you definitely talked about something that I think is really interesting. And I think a lot of people have lost sight of this in 2020 and with politics in general, which is really sad, right? I think that politics has become such a commodity that I think what you talked about as far as some of the local stuff you can do to really help people in the community. I mean, we've seen it. We've been doing a lot of government contracting lately, and understanding you can give back to someone, even if it's making a government department 1% more efficient. If you think about, there's 360 million people in the United States, that's a ton of people that you're helping. So I think that's a great cause, man, and we're looking forward to it. So tell us a little about Butterflies, man. What got you to write that? I'll make sure I link that up in the show notes, so people that haven't listened, it's on Spotify, it's on iTunes, everywhere, so go check it out. But what was the inspiration for that?
Yeah, thanks. So that's my first single that I released at the beginning of this past May, and I wrote that maybe about a year or two ago, and it was kind of this beginning stages of me thinking I know how to write songs and like, let me try it. But in my mind, I never really committed to it, but it was a post-relationship song. It was a great motivation always through relationships. I was just like figuring out like, why did things end up the way they did? And you'll kind of hear the hook of the song, but it says, I wish there were more butterflies. And it was kind of a very simple statement and expression. And I actually got it. I actually was having a conversation with a friend, and he plugged that line. I was like, dude, that's how I feel, and I'm going to write a song out of that. And that's what came out of it eventually. And then got hooked up with a good buddy of mine who helped produce it. And and that was kind of like even a statement for myself of like, all right, here we go. I'm out here trying to do music and trying to make some moves. So it was a fun song to put together.
I love that. So follow-up question to that. So if that was written 2 years ago, man, when's the Gabe Baker debut album?
Oh man, I'm working on an EP. Okay. How it works nowadays is this is my perspective of it as well. Based on your following in the music game, it's better just to drop singles, and then that leads up to whatever you're working on. So I'm going to be dropping a number of singles probably the next couple months before the year's out, and then I'm going to hopefully be releasing the EP, just probably about 5 or 6 songs, either by the beginning of next year or the end of this year. And then we'll see when the full feature album comes out. But
I love it.
Music is one of those things, like time is your friend kind of thing as well, because experiences and relationships can help curate your sound. And that's kind of what I'm learning very quickly of like, hey, don't try to rush the process to put something out. Like, you want to make sure it's just right how you want to get it there, and people are going to listen to it if it connects, Yeah,
man, I think being in Nashville too is only going to help that, right? You're around so many creative people. It's new experiences for you. I mean, you talked about it, and I think that we've talked about this on the podcast before, which is, sometimes you have to like take that leap and go find yourself, like whatever that truly is. And I think what you're doing is a great next step for that. So we're excited for you, man.
Yeah. Absolutely. Thanks, guys. Yeah. I'm stoked.
Last time I saw Gabe, I missed him by like a couple minutes at an open mic night. So if you guys are in Nashville and can actually make it tomorrow, I would advise it. I would
recommend it as well. I remember actually, a quick story, and then we'll let Gabe go. One of the first times I ever heard Gabe sing was actually in our dorm freshman summer. So we had a buddy on the team. His name was Dylan Clare. He was, playing the electric guitar, and Gabe sang along with it for a number of songs. I think the first song y'all did was Amazing Grace. I don't know if you've ever been like brought to tears by two ginormous men playing the guitar and singing in a dorm, but
No way.
it was really cool. So man, we're excited for your journey, man. We're excited
Thanks,
to talk
man.
to you again, hopefully in a few months, when you're settled and got things rolling. And then, we'll be ready to be on the campaign team whenever you're ready to go for governor. So let us know, man.
I'm already printing pens, man.
Hey, come on.
I don't know if people still do that anymore, but I'm a printer.
I'm here for it.
Some virtual pens. It'll be like some virtual pens. But yeah, thanks, y'all. This has been great. Thanks for having me, man.
All right, we now head into quick hits with managing partner Bobby Dixon. How you doing this morning, Bobby?
I'm doing great, guys. How you doing today?
We are good, man. We took a week off on the podcast last week to focus on, some business related things. And I think we're feeling refreshed and ready to roll this week. We had a good interview with Gabe this morning and we're, ready to rock. So let's
renewed enthusiasm.
Exactly, man. So let's go ahead and dive straight into it. So, we've covered a lot over the last several months on how businesses can overcome challenges. So really the enterprise level, but today we're really focusing on the individual. We think that, people are starting to return to work, and I think there's some things that they need to focus on. So what do you see as a key practical skill or learned tendency that you think people either, seek out new challenges or take on ones that are broadening their life?
It's a good question, Tanya. And I think this unique context that we're in, sort of adds new dimensions, to that question. And so when you think about where we're at, some people are being forced to take on new challenges that they otherwise wouldn't have been. Think about how a bird will just push, baby birds out of the nest at a certain point in time, and they either fly or it doesn't work out, right? But they have to leave the nest. And I think this context that we're in, right? And if you go back through history, context means everything. And in this context, I think is going to give birth to entrepreneurs, innovative ideas and concepts, right? Key partnerships and joint ventures and all these sorts of things that otherwise wouldn't have been the case simply because options were taken away. They've been pushed out of the nest, so to speak, layoffs, financial distress, and all those sorts of things. So those types of contexts birth opportunities. Yep. Now, in terms of how you face those opportunities and challenges and things, I think understanding, we've had this discussion on the pod, but both strengths and weaknesses, limitations, right? And being very self-evaluative and self-reflective of sort of your own SWOT analysis, so to speak, right? What do I do well? Where do I need to augment or supplement my strengths? What's the aspiration and what are the resources that I need to kind of mobilize around me? And, maybe it's time to take out that line of credit and pursue something that's been a passion of yours, right? It's always a risk mitigating concern, but in times like these, those mitigating factors, right, become lower, right? Because the opportunity cost is not as high. So It's a bit of a ramble. Don't know if I'm answering your question, but those things come to mind, right? And I think, this unique context that we're in, the considerations are a little bit different, right? It's kind of like, do you go to grad school or not go to grad school, right? In a down economy, great time to go to grad school.
Great time.
Right. The opportunity cost is not that high, right? So in a world where you can be doing everything possible on your job and still for macro reasons, be laid off, have your salary cut, whatever the case is, maybe it's time to pursue some passion you otherwise wouldn't have at that point in time. So those are some things that come to mind, Tanya.
No, I think that's great. And I think you called out a point that we're seeing all around us, which is there are a lot of small businesses popping up. You are seeing a lot of people like take that risk and dive out. So I think it's, a very cool fundamental shift that's happening in the American economy. And it's definitely something to watch. And, I think you hit on what it takes at the personal level to do that.
Absolutely. And it kind of made me think about what we discussed a little bit earlier when we were discussing gratitude and how, being thankful for the situation at the time versus being thankful for the new opportunity that you have coming up. How does that factor into, where people see themselves going when they're facing a new challenge or a new role that they want to take into play?
Attitude means a lot, Alex. Somebody much wiser than me said, "In all things give thanks," right? And that, I've learned to be content, right?
Mm-hmm.
In all things. Now, when you sort of juxtapose or break those things down, it does not necessarily mean, that I'm content in my station, right? Where I'm at today, right? I lack aspiration, but, if for whatever reason my station doesn't move, right, then I'm content, with the things I have, the people around me, the place I am, right? I have sort of an internal peace and satisfaction, that comes from, non-monetary things and those types of things, strength of relationships and sorts of things like that. So with that as a foundation, right, and an attitude, you say, getting back to the first question, right, it's like, hey, what the heck, right? Let's give this thing a go. That type of attitude, contentment on one side, but high aspiration on another side, sort of drives, high performance, if you will. High performance is going to create, lasting results. And so I think, Alex, again, these are good questions. As I talk, I realize I'm not sure if I'm even answering them, but those are some of the things that I think about, right? That
that's spot on.
Always striving for the next goal, next milestone, next objective, but at the same time, trying to be very focused on the things I have, family, friends, relationships, faith, and all those sorts of things that keep me grounded, right? And so my personal treasure or investment is not necessarily, wrapped up in these high aspirations, right? It's wrapped in the things that I already have. So, I mean, that's sort of, a guide and compass for me, as an entrepreneur. And if I were going to maybe, give somebody advice or even just a personal experience, I would speak to it that way.
No, I mean, we completely agree. And we talked about it a little bit earlier. I mean, it's almost the launch pad for someone to be able to go do something. If you don't have like that feeling of gratitude in your life, the fear of failure can be so crushing that you never start. I think that during this, pandemic, the social justice, the issues we're having in the United States right now, I think people have seen what rock bottom looks like for a lot of people. And I think rock bottom doesn't look as bad as the fear that tells you what it looks like. And so I think people have seen that. And so you're starting to see people kind of emerge from that and grow from that. So it's kind of flipped to a more like happy and lifelong subject here. Our big three today is bucket list items. And so, Alex and I have our list of bucket list things we want to do or go see or whatever before, we leave this world. And so we wanted to, get your input on, either, one bucket list item or a few bucket list items that you have on your list and maybe why.
Two for sure. The first would be Pebble Beach. I'm a golfer.
Oh, yeah.
Not that I golf well,
nice.
but I like to golf often. And so as of, in recent years, I've started traveling and putting different courses on the list. So Pebble Beach is on there. And in particular, I'd like to, there's three when you go out there. There's Pebble Beach, there's Spyglass, and Spanish Bay. Right. Okay. And so, and stay at the resort. So I got it all planned out. Yeah, I just have to get there. But it's on the bucket list. The second one would be opposite end of the spectrum. And I'd like to see the pyramids and the Sphinx, there in ancient Egypt and the ruins and just walk that whole area. That's always been something on my list. Can't think of a third just offhand, but under those two for sure.
Yeah.
Not necessarily in that order.
Yeah. Those are good ones.
Yeah.
I like that. See? Simple thing. Simple.
Yeah, I like
simple
it.
Guy wants simple things, wants to see some good stuff out there. I don't know what the problem is.
No, it's good stuff, man. I like it a lot. Well, Bobby, we appreciate the insight today. We appreciate kind of talking through, like I said, the more personal side of what people are going through in the business sense. And, we hope this brings a lot of value to people out there. So we look forward to talking to you next week.
All right, guys. Appreciate it. Have a good one.
All right. Now let's head into the cool down. So Tanya, what are we reading or listening to right now that can help out with some growth and productivity?
Man, so I have been brushing up my skills the last couple of weeks on Python, which is a coding language. So we have several projects upcoming that require, our software engineers and stuff to be able to do that. And as a, project lead, I always feel it's incredibly important to have a really good understanding of everything that the people on the team are doing. So I've been brushing up on that again to get kind of the latest certification. I had one several years ago, but honestly haven't used it the last couple of years. So been brushing up on that. And then, man, I have been, from a podcast perspective, I've been on a Joe Rogan tear the last couple of weeks, man. He's had all kinds of people. I just actually finished a Post Malone episode, which I thought was really interesting. It's 4 hours long. Which is, no one can listen to that in one sitting. I think it's taken me 14 days now to complete that. While I go on runs or bike rides, whatever it may be. So, but really good stuff. I think it really helps. I would recommend anyone out there to look in, if you work in IT at all and you aren't familiar with coding languages, Python's a good one to learn. SQL's another great one to learn. So I think understanding those is really key. What about you?
Nice. Lately, man, we've been having a lot of bids we're working on, a lot of proposals that we're working on. So I've been churning through those from my reading perspective. But for my listening, I've been listening to Bomani Jones's podcast recently, keeping up with this whole college cancellation of football and fall sports kind of thing. Yeah. I saw that the Pac-12 is like unionizing the entire, basically the entire conference with kids from all different types of sports. They're all getting together and just demanding what they want, what they need. So this thing is growing a life of its own. I think it's going to really change college sports for a little while, especially with conversation and stuff like that, as it comes back around next year, or if they do it in the spring. So I've been trying to keep up with that a little bit, and Bomani's been doing a good job of informing the viewers and listeners on his podcast. All right, so big three. Bucket list items. I'm going to go first because I have no idea what Tanyan has on his list, and I think he has 10 items or something like that. So I'm going to just knock all mine out, and then he can give y'all his spiel on his. So my first one, I've had this for a long time, actually, with my best friend, Jared. We said one day that we wanted to go to all the football stadiums and all the baseball stadiums. We met growing up when we were 5 years old in Little League Baseball. We've been best friends ever since. He went to college to play baseball. I went to college to play football. And this has been one of our goals and bucket list items that we kept on the list for a long time now. So that's the first one.
That's dope.
Second one is to visit the Giraffe Manor in Kenya. It's a hotel in Kenya, or a hotel, bed and breakfast, something like that, right? So where you wake up in the morning and there's giraffes outside. Giraffes can stick their head in your window of your room. You can feed them from your window of your room. And when you go outside to eat on the patio, they're out there walking around beside you. So definite bucket list item. I'm definitely going to go to Africa, but I have to make sure that I go to the Giraffe Manor one day. If not, my wife will probably kill me.
That sounds sweet though. That might be like a 5th birthday gift for baby Mars,
We could do that. We might have to make that happen.
I like it.
All right. My third one is, my family has a lot of land out on the countryside, and I really want to build something one day for my family to either live in or something to generate a little bit more extra income for them, just for the family as a whole, to help out anybody that's in need, or medical bills or just regular bills and stuff like that. But that's probably the one that's been on my mind for the longest time, to make sure that I can build something to help out my family.
Love that, man. That's the dream, right? Is to have, my mom's talked about that since I was a little kid, having a compound when we get older, and having, the parents close, but not too close, where you can kind of all hang out. Right. So I think it's great. Well, I mean, that's a great bucket list. I love those, man. Those are solid items. So,
all right, let's hear it.
Okay. So I have a bucket list. So I have a big 3 of trips, experiences that I want to have. And then I have things I want to do. So I'm going to do the trips first, and then I'm going to do those. So first one is, don't know why, but I think this would be super awesome, and I've wanted to do since I was a little kid as well, is go to Iceland, sit in one of the naturally occurring hot springs, and watch the northern lights at night. I think that would be super cool. I think that would be just a really cool experience. One of the things you're going to notice about all of these is none of them involve having technology with me at any point in time. So think about these all as kind of a reset.
Gotcha.
The next one is train through Europe, stop in, every country that I can, and try local food, local experiences, all that stuff, and really try and immerse in the culture. I think that'd be super fun. I know that's one of the things I wish we had in the US was, the same kind of train system that we had that there is in Europe. So I think that'd be great to do. And then my last one would be to scuba the Great Barrier Reef before it, before it is no longer the Great Barrier Reef.
Yeah.
So that's a little bit time bound one. So I think that's definitely something that's on my list.
You have no time. You just got to get that scuba license, and then
No,
you're good to go.
I know I can make that happen. So those are the trip ones. So
Okay.
as far as like things I want to do. So I want to start a nonprofit charity that really focuses on shaping kids who come from single parent households, specifically on coaching them up on, the experiences you can get on your own outside the education system, right? So you talked about YouTube or university. I really think about mentorship opportunities, all that kind of stuff, and really grow that and have a charity gala, man. I've always wanted to host a charity gala that helps something, that goes to a good cause and one that I know where the money's actually going. I think that's been my distrust. So I want to be the guy that has one of those. So that's definitely in the works. For the people that don't know,
but that's cool.
the Better Man process is coming soon to a city near you, but I already have the trademark on it. So that's where we're moving on. The next one is, and this goes back to our time at Rice. So one of the things that our head coach at the time always said is, 5 years out, you want to donate back your scholarship money. 10 years out, you want to do X, and 15 years out, you want to, donate up to a building on campus. So for me, that's something that I think would be really awesome to do, is to have either a building or a scholarship in my name, within the next 10, 15 years. So it's definitely something I'm tracking on.
Okay.
And then the last one is, this is something that's really come up in the last year and a half, which is I would love to host a project and change management retreat in an exotic location. So I think about like the project management seminars, the change management seminars that I've gone to, or that, we've led internally through Athenian, have mostly been in big cities. I think it would be awesome to do one like in Bora Bora, like in a relaxed location where people could kind of not only enjoy, but have some real conversation. So a little sneak peek for the folks listening of something we're going to be doing at Athenian in the next year or so. But I think that's going to be a really cool experience.
I'm down for a Fiji trip, Hawaii,
for sure,
for some work. I'm not complaining.
We'll make it work. I think those are great big threes, man. I like that a lot.
Man. I like yours. I thought you was gonna have a lot more, but I like it. You kept it cool.
I mean, I have about 6 honorable mentions here,
but we're gonna go ahead.
We'll save those
Q&A.
for offline.
We're gonna go ahead to Q&A. All right. So the question that we have this week is, they said, I've listened to the podcast for several months and have enjoyed the guests you have on, but I realize I don't really understand what Athenian Group is or what they do. Can you give the listeners a little background? I'll let you take this one, Tanya.
Man, this is a good question. So this is very true. So with Wise Counsel Weekly, we have spent a lot of time focusing on how we can provide value to your business and to your personal life through our guests and through the content. We haven't really talked much about what Athenian Group is. And that's intentional, right? We're not, for us, this isn't a marketing thing, but just background on Athenian. So Athenian is, for the last decade, has been one of the leading minority-owned professional service firms in the country, really specializing in delivering sustainable change for our customers and driving value for them. And really where we try to focus is, we partner with big consulting firms, and we think there's a lot of great things that those consulting firms can do as far as, the bodies and the talent that they have. But we really pride ourselves on having top tier talent, right? Folks that have come from previous organizations as executives or leaders, whether that's in the government or the private sector, and then really try to listen to you as the customer, right? We try to have custom tailored plans and solutions to meet your needs and really make sure that we work as an extension of your team. I feel like when I, was an employee at a Fortune 500 company, I often felt like when consulting firms came in, it was what they were going to do to us and not what they were going to do with us, what they were going to work with us on. So at Athenian, we strive to listen to you and work as an extension of the team. So that's kind of my perspective on what we do here, what Athenian is, and our background. We've worked with Fortune 500 companies. We've worked with, government municipalities, work with, public utilities. We've kind of worked across the board, right? Nonprofits. We've tried to do a number of things. So that's kind of my thoughts. Alex, anything you want to add?
That's it, man. We're just trying to tap into some new markets, tap into some new things that we haven't before, and continue to grow the firm.
Cool. Yeah, I love that. Well, man, I think this was another great episode. I love the emphasis we put on personal development this week. And, I think there's really some practical things we can take from it. I think having Gabe was awesome. He's something that is, he's not 30 years old yet. And if you look at all the things
Right.
he's done, it's pretty amazing, all the different challenges he's taken on and the things he's learned from it, both personally, professionally, and spiritually. And I think that was great for us to hear, right? It was great to catch up with him, right? Obviously as a friend, but, to hear, I think for the listeners as well. And then talking through, what Bobby mentioned as far as, what you can do to kind of carry that personal stuff into your professional life, I think was great. And then, like I said, I love our Q&A from our listeners. So keep sending that in, get to us on LinkedIn, on Instagram, on Twitter, on info@atheniangroup.us, on our new website. Special plug there. We got a brand new website, atheniangroup.us. Go check it out. It's pretty slick. You can message us directly on there as well. So we'll continue to take Q&A from there. We got a bunch stored up in the tank, so we're good for the next couple of weeks, but we always love to bring on more. So, next episode, we'll be back next week. We got a pretty cool guest. We're teeing up for that. I think it'll be another good one. And, we're looking forward to, bringing more content and talking to you guys soon. So as always, take time to breathe and focus on your current situation. Adversity breeds ingenuity. And Alex?
Wise counsel leads to sustainable results.